Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Big Bad Marketing Podcast. I'm Janae.
And I am Brooke, and we are two entrepreneurs jumping headfirst into building a business.
We're marketers and content creators at heart. And in this podcast, we help small business owners learn how to play big with their marketing efforts, even with a small business budget.
So if you're ready to make big bad moves in your professional life, this podcast is for you. This is episode 7. How do you choose the right social media channels for your business? Whew, big loaded question. And a lot of small business owners think that quote unquote doing social media means I need to be everywhere all at once. Or worse, I'm just going to do something on one channel and then I'm going to splash it across all of the other social media platforms and not think twice about it. Well, what we are here to say is that choosing the right social media channels for your business is more of an art. There are questions that you need to consider. There are uh, things that you need to think deeply about before you begin. And the reality is, you might not need to be on social media at this stage of your business. So, here at Big Bad Marketing, we are focusing heavily on this podcast and our website and blog content for the, first few months-ish of 2025. And we might not be on social media for a while. We know it's an eventuality, and we'll follow these exact same steps to choose the right social channels when the time comes.
Sure, it's a super controversial point that you just made, but it's true. You might not need to be on social media at all. Maybe now you don't need to, but also you might not ever need to, depending on your industry and your business. So before you dive into that, definitely read through these and take some of these points into consideration. Um, there's a few things you can do to help you identify whether you should be on social and which platforms to choose, which channels to choose. Big point, big glaring point is, do you have a website? A website is probably a much more useful starting point than a social media channel. You own it, first of all, and you can make sure you're garnering all of your customers to that place through your social later. But if you don't have one, that's a really great starting point. Get yourself a website. Where are you going to direct your end users?
Yeah. And on that point, I think viewing social media as this conduit, right? So social media is just one way for you to capture users, but you've got to send them somewhere. So your website is the ideal place for that home base where all of your social channels, if you're on them, are all pointing back to your website, where then, to your point, you own it, you own the email list, you can get them to subscribe to things that you will then always have access to.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, another thing to do before you start socializing on social media is to figure out what's your bottom line through the social. What is your goal through social media? So, do you just want to show up with brand awareness and get your name out? Are you planning on converting users and your audience through social media posts so that they can do a direct shopping experience and make a purchase? Are you trying to get them to sign up for your email newsletter? Right, think through the end goal so that you know what your CTA, your call to action, is going to be through most of your posts. And then another item here is to figure out who is going to be doing the social, right? Because what you want to avoid is muddling it up, having it dispersed across tons of people who all have different visions, directions, goals, understandings of the process, brand voices. It's a good idea to have just one person in charge of it or a team that is all in alignment on what that process looks like, what your brand voice is, and has a clear document and guidelines of that laid out, or hire an agency. For example, Big Bad Marketing is here to provide you a one stop shop for social media and making sure you're on the right channels and getting the posts to be consistent, clear, and easy button for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all so important to consider before you dive into social. And what we tend to see a lot is when there is not clear ownership of the social channels. This is when people tend to post a lot, and they'll post a lot for the first week and they're all excited and they got all these great ideas. So they'll do like 4 or 5 posts, or they're posting every day. And then all of a sudden it stops. and then nothing happens for a month or 2 months or a year. And then it sort of creates this inconsistent experience for your audience where they're sort of like, what's happening here? So, in the next episode, we're going to discuss social media strategy and how to develop that for your business. But for now, we want to dive into where should you show up, if anywhere. So, the first step to that is figuring out who your audience is and where they hang out online. So, think about basics like age. Are you trying to appeal to a largely Gen Z demographic? Is the product or service you offer geared towards boomers? Gender. Women are far more likely to show up on certain platforms like Pinterest, whereas guys tend to favor Reddit and others. Location. Where is your local community hanging out online? Maybe you are in an area that just tends to trend towards TikTok over Instagram, and knowing those things is super important. You can also think about things like income, education, and occupation, and look into channels that are going to best support those groups of people that you're trying to find. So those are sort of the basic demographics, and then dive into the deeper, more personal things like what are people interested in? What are their values, their beliefs? What do they do for fun? Where might they be showing up based on their behaviors? And once you have all of these things in place, you can sort of start to say, okay, this is going to help me narrow down where my ideal audience might be hanging out.
Definitely those first items are like this base layer of like, do women buy my products or services more? Do men? Do older people? Do younger people? Do people in certain areas of my local region or in this country? So those are going to be real crucial guiding factors as you start to understand who's looking for your products. And if you don't know that, then how will you know which channel to be on? I don't know.
Yep, exactly. And then also layering in the customer pain points. So, how are people looking for answers to their problems? How do they make decisions about solving the problems? And where might they go for solutions? So, obviously, much of our background is in SEO, which is primarily revolves around Google. And in the past couple years, there has been this conversation of, hey, well, Gen Z buyers, they tend to go to TikTok for information before they even consult Google for it. So that is a very important thing to understand when you are considering where your customers are getting their information from. And then similarly, what is going to motivate them to buy? So there's a lot. I I talk to a lot of friends who say, oh, yeah, I bought this on Instagram. The targeted advertising got me again. I just couldn't help it. I kept getting spammed with it, so I just bought it. And that type of impulse buying is a great opportunity for certain products if you offer that. But other offerings are going to require a bit more thorough research. And then also consider, are your target buyers loyal to certain brands or lifestyles or ideologies? And how are you going to compete alongside those in the social media landscape?
Sure. And it's so important here to understand that this is unique to your business because the different buyers are going to behave differently, obviously, but it matters so much. What is your product? What is your service? And how does the key audience of that product or service behave when it comes to buying? So you have different channels that are going to appeal to different types of products and services and also different customer bases. And I think that's what we're doing here is trying to understand the nuances of how those things fit together. Because if you're an accountant, you might not have as much luck as you're describing with those targeted ads on Instagram, right? Like it's harder to be like, yes, let me hire this accountant just because they showed a picture of themselves with a form, right? Where some really cool sunglasses or skincare product on like a young hip model might be more convincing in a spur of the moment purchase. So it really starts to matter here. And this is how we're going to help distinguish and differentiate which channels make sense for you.
Yes, absolutely. So, in a second, we're going to walk through each channel and explore them one by one and talk through who it's best for, who it might not make sense for. But before you do that, take a second to sit down, develop that sort of buyer persona that is your common customer, give them a name, make them real, give them features. So say this is Lana. She lives in Charleston and she is 34 years old and she likes to shop on the weekends and she makes $90,000 a year as a PR specialist. There you go. So now your mission becomes a little bit easier because you get to say, which one of these platforms might I find Lana on? And that just sort of helps make this whole thing a little bit more real.
Oh, yes, I can visualize that person like going to play tennis and going to the pizzeria in the evenings and scrolling through Instagram and being like, "Oh, I love this," and buying it. And then when it comes to like, "Oh, but my roof is leaking and I need a new roof," going to Google or going to Yelp and not necessarily being like, "Let me consult TikTok for how to fix this roof."
Yes, absolutely. And those types of user journeys are sort of what we are trying to unravel. And we'll do a later episode that talks all about the user journey. But importantly, your user journey is going to look different based on your product or service. So, not everything is a one size fits all just because there are, other small businesses similar to yours having success on a certain platform that can be an indicator that you might be successful there, but it's not a 100% guarantee that that's the right move for you at the current stage of your business. So let's go ahead and hop
Wow.
in. YouTube. All right, everybody knows YouTube. This is one of the most popular social platforms for video. So, Janae, who is YouTube going to be best for?
It's typically used for young male demographics. And then it's going to be a great place if your product or service is requires some in-depth information. So you want to provide tutorials or how-to videos. If you want to show users of your service or product how to use it and give them a really clear visual example, either of a screen share of someone else using it, or even a testimonial of someone a customer using it, or if it's someone in-house showing and demonstrating how to use it. It's great for like a fitness coach, for example, or a yoga instructor demonstrating a pose. And then, for example, for us, like a home services company, maybe you want to show the process of here's how we help our customers identify what's going on with their roof, assess the situation, make a decision for the new roof, and then the completed process of the installation. So it's really good for showcasing like sort of this long scale process of using the tool or the service, and then helping the customer understand what is the end result after they've gone ahead with the purchase and moved it forward.
Yes, all of that.
Um,
So true. When I think of YouTube, I think of how to. Anything how to related. And so one of our clients owns an HVAC company, and I've had conversations with him saying, you could do some YouTube videos for the more basic repairs that you go out and assess to help homeowners do these initial 3 to 4 steps before you even head out to make sure that it's worth your time to go out there because there are certain things that homeowners can repair on their own. So anything where you are showcasing a service. I mean, obviously, it's great for software companies, like you talked about with demos. But makeup tutorials, super popular. How to style your hair with a certain tool, like anything related to that. And then, obviously, with the younger male demographic, I think a lot of those are like gaming videos and things that not necessarily in our wheelhouse, but definitely worth considering.
sure. And to this end, I think in the current state of the marketplace as a whole, people are operating under the assumption that social media and more specifically marketing through social media is meant to be direct purchase marketing. So you're like, here's this product, buy it now. And then people are like, great, I'll buy it. And my personal experience with it and professional is social media started as a platform and tool to help businesses show who they are and present themselves and help users understand their brand identity, their brand values, the way that they can operate the different things that they're selling, not necessarily be like, buy this now. So I think the point you just made about the HVAC company is a great one. the idea isn't that someone's going to watch that video and be like, great, now let me hire Bob. It's going to be like, oh, Bob really knows what he's doing and helped me adjust my thermostat and just replace the battery. I didn't even need to hire him. But next time when your thermostat is broken, you will call him because you built that trust through the social media, not because you made an initial purchase right away through it.
Absolutely. And with so many businesses, someone doesn't need you until they need you. So this really is a more long-term play. And in our next episode about strategy, we'll sort of talk about the metrics to assess your success on social media and how to think about that. But for now, as we think about choosing it, just remember that the intention is not always that direct purchase. You don't need to have an explicit hire us call to action in every video that you make on YouTube. It's more important to be helpful than it is to try and seal the deal. All right, Instagram. Everyone loves Instagram. So this tends to be a super popular place for millennials and Gen Z. Obviously, a lot of lifestyle interests there. So fashion, fitness, travel, things that photograph well. So if you have a product or service that is highly visual and you can create these gorgeous images, that's a really great way to show your brand personality. And building and fostering community as well. So user generated content is huge on there. So if you already have a loyal audience of people who love what you do, that's a great way to then be able to direct people back to your Instagram page through these other people who are already promoting your product with or without an influencer relationship.
Sure, there's a lot of people posting as influencers who hashtag ad, like they've been paid to post about your product or service. But there's also a lot of people who are just like, I just love this and I just want to share it. And they talk about it. And then I see so many brands reposting and resharing that content because it's real, it's authentic. And that's the beauty of these platforms, specifically for like maybe not so much large scale, but global products and services. So if even if you're a little bakery in a local town, if you're making this like beautiful custom special item and you're willing to ship it, across the country or provide your services or products that are really niche to this other community, not just right outside your door, this is a great way to get people involved and get to see what you're doing and then share the share the good that the other people are talking about your stuff.
Yes, definitely. Definitely good for that type of connection and building that community. And there is a lot of authenticity to it. And I think in 2025, people are really quick to hone in on that. Oh, this is an ad. Somebody paid for this. This might not be the most authentic thing. So, really finding those people who legitimately love your product and would shout it from the rooftops without any type of, monetary incentive, I think that really hits home with people. And that's what a lot of brands are trying to do with Instagram. And I think the most successful brands are doing that.
Definitely. And in some cases, it's not even that it's an influencer being paid and writing ad. It's just an influencer type content really helps showcase a real person interacting with your product or service. And there's no better way of promoting your whatever your goods are than just showing people actually using it, even if they're like, oh, it has this little funny thing on the bottom, but it really doesn't make a difference for the rest of the experience. It just really helps people be like, oh, this is a real thing and I can see myself using it.
Yes, correct. So, businesses that might really thrive on Instagram. So, obviously, businesses that are in these fashion, fitness, travel spheres. So, travel agencies, boutique clothing stores that want to show off their latest fashions, any business that wants people to be able to shop directly through Instagram. Say that you are not at a place with your business where you are able to offer shipping from your website, so you don't have a Shopify integration or anything, you can use the Instagram shopping functionality and accept purchases through that platform. So that's just something to consider, especially if you are a smaller business who isn't yet ready to make that investment or you're sort of testing the waters to see if that's something that's feasible.
Who would not be a great candidate for Instagram?
Hmm. Businesses that So this is a tough one because I think a lot of businesses can be successful on Instagram. So even when we think about, the CPA, maybe they're not having the most aesthetically pleasing images of the front folder of a tax return, but they might be able to offer some funny things or some helpful tips to people that are really going to sort of nurture them through that type of educational or entertainment content. But B2B businesses probably not going to thrive on the Instagram
Agree.
platform. Probably are going to want to look at something more like LinkedIn. But anybody who is selling products or services direct to consumer, I think there is a play on Instagram if you're willing to go there and if you have the time to also engage. And engagement is something we'll talk about a little bit later, but I think Instagram is really one of those platforms where engagement is a key component of existing there.
Right. Absolutely. It's it's what we're saying where you maybe don't need to be on any given channel, but if you do it well and you keep in mind that it's not meant to be direct sales, but it's a nurturing platform, I think a lot of businesses, just like you said, a CPA can find success using it.
Yes, definitely.
Level setting on the expectations.
Yes, yes.
So what
All
about
right.
Facebook?
Facebook. So I hear a lot of people that take the Facebook is dead. Nobody's on Facebook anymore. But the reality is it continues to be one of the most popular social media platforms. And it is a lot heavier on the millennial and elder millennial audience, as well as boomers. So Gen Z, if you're a business that largely is serving Gen Z, there are probably other options that are going to give you a little bit more bang for your buck. But Facebook can be great for building a local audience, or if you are a business that wants to leverage the group functionality. So, say you are a health coach and you want to offer a small group health coaching program, but you're not at the point where you can hire a developer to build a custom group community functionality on your website or custom develop an app for you. Facebook is a great way to do that for free and to create a space for a group of people to interact by invitation only. So that can be a really helpful piece of functionality. And also, any business that really wants to foster community with their audience, if you have an engaged audience, they might reach out for, information on troubleshooting, how to use your product, answering questions, communicating any concerns. And you can really use that as kind of a customer service channel in some ways, as well as a social media platform. So, what types of businesses might do well on Facebook?
Sure. I think home services actually really can knock it out of the park on Facebook because they can build that culture that you're describing where there's a group and different people can talk about it, but they can also just show up as they are and reach their local community. And often when we think of home services, like those types of businesses aren't trying to reach people in a different region, they're trying to reach people here. So I think this is a great place for like a landscaping company, a cleaning service, plumbing. And then if you have a local retail shop, this could also be good. A bookstore came to mind as a place where you can foster community discussions about different books or create a book club aspect of your page. And then people can chat about new books and they can see what you're doing in the bookstore if you're having events. So great place for like a niche retail or home services. Probably want to avoid if you're seeking a large scale audience for high ticket items like luxury fashion or healthcare, or excuse me, skincare or makeup, things like that, or something that's more B2B in nature, like fintech or manufacturing.
Yep, that all makes sense. Facebook, contrary to popular belief, is not dead. I think it will remain relevant for a really long time. I think the group's functionality is something that no other platform has really replicated in a valuable way yet, and I have yet to see people transition to it. So, definitely something to heavily consider if you are that local home service kind of a business. Which brings us to Pinterest. So, Pinterest is another platform that has been around for quite a while and is kind of having this resurgence in many ways. Similar to Instagram, Pinterest is super visual. It is highly catered towards the young female demographic. The target audience of 25 to 34 is the business that would really thrive on Pinterest. Pinterest is also becoming super shoppable. A lot of people link out to Etsy stores and other areas where you can purchase the goods directly. So if you are selling a physical good that is an aesthetically pleasing thing, if you do throw blankets or candles or makeup or anything that somebody would be interested in buying and can make a purchase decision quickly. So
Hmm.
Pinterest probably not the ideal place for those sort of higher end luxury type items, but for things that maybe fall in that price point of sort of like below $200 ish, I think that could be a
Mm-hmm.
really uh, good decision for a business selling at that price point.
Definitely. And similarly, I think it's a great place for services. When I think of a lot of the products you're mentioning, there, those are like a great add-on for companies like an event planning company, like a wedding planning company who can make like all kinds of Pinterest boards for like a boho wedding or a chic wedding or whatever you choose. And then they're not only promoting and presenting themselves of like how they might style an event, but they're also able to tag like these candles came from West Elm, by the way, go ahead and buy them. Or this is a locally made craftsman who made these vases. So lots of different options, and I think services can really benefit from being on Pinterest and showing up as they show up to their customers.
Yes, huge platform for ideas and inspiration. If there are things that somebody can do with your product, like you said, with the wedding planner, like the boho weddings, absolutely love that. People are looking for that kind of stuff all the time. As long as you are going image and visual heavy on these things. I think
Mm-hmm.
if your business has a blog, you can use Pinterest to pull people into your website via your blog. So, in the case of the boho wedding, would definitely advise doing a blog post about, 27 ideas for your perfect boho wedding, and then create the pin that is going to direct users into your site and then eventually to you as the provider of those services. So, great, easy way to drive traffic back to your website. So, any kind of crafty, artsy people selling goods, event planning companies, interior designers, stagers, anyone in that sort of lifestyle realm could really do well on Pinterest. As far as the businesses that maybe aren't best for Pinterest, probably restaurants might want to stay away from Pinterest. Specifically fast food chains. There are other platforms to reach your audience there, maybe TikTok, Instagram, something else. Um, Electricians, honestly, a lot of home service businesses are maybe not to say wasting time,
It
but could
depends,
be.
right?
It depends, yeah. And like so many of the things, it depends. It depends on the age and stage of your business. It depends on if you're willing to go create content that falls outside of the bounds. Electricians and plumbers maybe would struggle a little bit on Pinterest, but a general contractor who's doing gorgeous kitchen and bathroom renovations could do really well with that medium. So it really is trying to strike the balance of does that make sense for your particular business?
Which is, I think, a key takeaway of this entire episode is like, this is so unique to you. So keep that in mind.
Yes. TikTok, take it away.
Oh, is that because I'm the closest to being Gen Z?
That's because I have never been on TikTok and I have no desire
Oh.
to be on TikTok.
Yeah. So TikTok to me is like the child of Instagram and YouTube together, where it's like quick video. And it appeals so much to the youngest generations because of that, because it's really quick access to information. And I mean, I maybe you've never been on TikTok, but I am sure that you've seen some of these quick format videos where it's like lots of information, life hacks or how-to guides that are put into 10 seconds or less. In fact, I read a statistic that length videos, or the most popular length videos, are 8 seconds to 15 seconds. So the shorter that you can cram a ton of information into, the better. So for that, there's like two ways to get at that. There's um, informal videos, which are huge on TikTok, just like someone walking around and taking a quick video and showing stuff and then layering the pieces together and bing, bang, boom, it's done. Or super well crafted, really well thought out and edited and refined videos. So it's again striking that balance, like what's going to make sense for your audience and the way that they want to consume information. So this is going to be great if you have a product or service that's striking chords with young people. And then also, if your product or service, similarly, as we were talking about before, even if you are a local small business, if you're able to get that thing out to a larger audience across the globe, I found this term I had never heard actually, which is micro communities. So if you're like this super niche product or service and you know exactly who your audience is and your personas are like these really unique characters, right? This is the platform you want to be on. You want to show how you're doing like your super special 14 karat gold eyebrow threading and that you sell the gold eyebrow thread and people can buy it from Kalamazoo. Like it doesn't matter. And then it's also really good for influencers for that same reason, because you can show authentically people using and interacting with your product or service. So here in comes a video of, Sarah who bought your gold thread and is now using it on her customers because she found it on TikTok by searching and looking for um, aesthetic, healthcare, personal care items.
So even though I am not on TikTok, I have had people send me videos of things that they thought were funny. And so I'm curious, out of all the platforms that we've been covering today, i- do you feel like TikTok is the most kind of shareable content?
Ooh, I'd say TikTok and YouTube are pretty close in terms of being able to forward the content to another person if they're, especially if the other person is not on the platform. And then certainly in terms of capturing short attention spans. So if you are going to send something to someone and you're like, they're going to laugh at this, or they might be interested in this product, if you've got 15 seconds or less, right? Where you maybe aren't going to send them a 15-minute video from YouTube. So I think that's spot on. Yes, TikTok's quite shareable.
Yeah. Do you think that TikTok requires a more creative type of person to manage it?
It requires someone who is willing to do a lot of footage capturing and layering the content together well, right? If you what happens is this video is 15 seconds, but creating that video, even if it's an informal video, didn't just take 15 seconds, right? You have to figure out which scenes and which angles you want to capture, opening your new vessel and how to display the different pieces of it and put it together. So there's a little bit of thought in it. Yes, it requires someone who's diligent.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for small business owners, especially if they are planning to outsource the social media, because there really is something to developing the posts. And there is a reason that there is a sometimes hefty price tag on doing social media well, because it is so much more than just, I'm going to put this post and it just showed up. It took me 5 minutes. Like the reality is that it can be hours and hours of time and effort to actually get something that is ready for prime time.
Oh, yes. Don't be fooled that it looks like it came together in 10 seconds and they just did a quick video clip, right? That was a probably well thought out and in time invested production.
Yeah, definitely. So, who should be on TikTok? Who can skip?
So I'm going to say retail products. So skincare products, makeup, like a bakery. You see a lot of like cooking trends going on there and people wanting to buy like specialty candies or products or snacks. Even personal trainers are on there. You have things like challenges and like I said, how to's. So things like that are going to be perform well on TikTok. Where if you're a B2B company, it's probably a little harder to be on TikTok and or like a corporate oriented company. So like a legal firm, maybe not going to be your best bet. And you'd be better off on LinkedIn, which is a great segue because let's talk about LinkedIn.
Yes. So, LinkedIn is best for the B2B businesses. I think that's sort of blanket statement. Anyone who really wants to establish themselves as a thought leader in a particular space, anyone who's looking to connect with high level decision makers at companies, find HR people, find C-suite people to target for your product. And then it's also a great place to promote long form content. So if you are putting out white papers and really comprehensive reports, that's a great place to showcase those. Um, so really, it's kind of professionalism above everything else. So if you're an IT consultant or an app developer or a freelance writer, definitely take the time to be on LinkedIn. Otherwise, for the average small business owner doing plumbing, electrician, roofing, something like that, maybe not necessary for you to be on LinkedIn.
Sure, especially because those are going to be people most often targeting like a residential scenario, which would just be a direct to homeowner. But I'd say if you're a commercial plumber or commercial services, that it could still work.
Yeah, definitely. Would have to be a very strategic approach to that for sure. Yeah. And we would be remiss if we did an episode on social and not mention Reddit. So, Reddit obviously getting a lot of attention and can be a really great place for brands to show up and engage and be helpful to their audience. So, the Reddit community, in my experience, is hypersensitive to explicit promotion of a product or service, and they kind of inherently reject that. So,
Hmm.
you don't, so someone is in the local Charleston subreddit and they say, hey, I'm looking for information about if I should get a metal roof. And so, as an owner of a roofing company, I could go into Reddit and say, hey, in my experience, homeowners have really been happy with metal roofs if they fit XYZ criteria. And maybe you don't need it if it's XYZ. By the way, I'm a roofer. If you wanted to at the very bottom of the post, it's still, a little bit of self promotion, but at the end of the day, you're giving a genuinely helpful answer and you're trying to engage with that community of people that you can eventually help.
So there's this educational aspect to the content. And then, by the way, I also do this and I can help.
Yep,
So that
exactly.
seems like it would actually conversely be a great place for local services.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing with Reddit is you just got to show up and legitimately just want to be helpful. Again, it's not the type of place where you're going to say, my goal for Reddit is to convert 30 customers next month, because that's probably not the reality of what you're doing on that platform. But if you just legit want to help, put yourself out there as an expert in your space, that can be a really valuable way to do it. So, a couple other platforms that are mentioned here and there that could be worth looking into for a business, but we're not going to cover them in depth here. So, Snapchat, Blue Sky, Tribal, Mastodon, Substack, and Quora are just some others to consider. There are obviously going to be new social platforms popping up everywhere, and that's okay. You do not need to jump on it just because it's new. You can wait until it's a little more vetted. And in the next episode, when we cover strategy, we can kind of talk through how to reassess your social after a certain point and decide if you need to pivot.
Sure. And don't be afraid if after listening to this, you realize maybe just social's not where you're at right now, whether your business just you haven't scaled that far yet, or you find it's just not aligned with what your goals are. That's okay too. Put your focus into your business, into your website, and slowly and surely, I think the right platforms will reveal themselves. But don't just eagerly jump on the bandwagon of social media just because it's a buzzword.
Boom, mic drop. Let's end it
Mm.
there.